So we're going to get rid of using this. All right? We're going to use this. We'll use this sometimes. But mathematically, mathematicians don't like to put down a lot of stuff they don't need. Do I really need these parentheses to show the multiplication? No, this shows it, so why would I put parentheses there? That's two things that are unnecessary. Okay? So I wouldn't show those parentheses. Does that make sense? Okay? So when I would use those parentheses, if I go back over to this one, I would do this one like this. I would do that one like that. And that shows me I'm multiplying 3 times the sum of a plus 4. So you would want to write that one down so that you have that as an example. Okay? That's when you'd want to use that parenthesis business. Not particularly here, because why would you put more work into it when you don't need to? Does that make sense? Not that it's wrong. But mathematicians don't like to put a bunch of stuff down when it's not necessary. Okay? They want to whittle it down to the fewest symbols they need. All right? So did you write that example down here? Did you write that example down here? Do you have your yellow book open? Okay? So, with those examples then, we're going to start taking a look at the wording, and we're going to start writing expressions based on the wording. And with that in mind, yes, Eli, question? Huh? No? Oh, I thought you had your hand up. Well, no, we're not dealing with that now. We're having a lesson. With that in mind, we're not changing how we're looking for keywords, but we're going to be finding that there are some unknowns out there, and in those unknowns, we're going to throw in that variable. Does that make sense? So we'll say things like, there are some people. We don't know how many people, so we fill in the variable there, a P, people. Does that make sense? Instead of there are 5 people, there are some people. So we put the P in there. Does that make sense? Okay? Let's take a look at some examples. A video rental machine charges $3 to rent a DVD plus, the word plus ought to be jumping out at you. A $2 late fee for each day the DVD is overdue. We're to write an algebraic expression for the total amount in dollars that the video rental machine charges for a DVD that is D days overdue. We don't know how many days it's going to be overdue. That's the thing that can keep changing. Maybe she has it 5 days overdue. Maybe she has it 7 days overdue. Maybe he has it 3 days overdue. Okay? Does that make sense? We aren't all going to have it the same day it's overdue. But for every day it's overdue, we pay how much? $2 for every day, right? If we pay $2 for every day it's overdue, how would I figure out how much I pay? If it's $2 for every day it's overdue, how would I figure out how much I pay? If hers was, how many days was yours overdue? How would we figure out how much she had to pay if hers was 5 days overdue and we paid $2 every day it's overdue? What would we do? 5 times 2. If hers was 3 days overdue, 7 days overdue, how would we figure out how much she pays? 7 times 2. And his was 5 days overdue? No. 3 days overdue. How do we figure out how much he pays? 3 times 2. So we took everybody's days times 2, right? We take everybody's days times 2, right? Days is D, right? So we take their days times 2. 2 times their days, right? Yes? But is that all we pay? No. It said plus. You charge $3 up front to rent it, right? Plus, so we charge $3 just to rent it, plus $2 for every day it's overdue. What if it's not overdue? Then what are you going to plug in there? A 0. Do you pay anything for being overdue then? No. You only pay $3 to rent it, right? Does that make sense? Okay. Now, here's the other thing you're going to have to write down. If we are using a variable, you have to tell me what the variable stands for. D stands for the days it's overdue. You can't just use a variable and expect your reader to know what that variable represents. You know in our writings we say what our variables stand for? T is the total number of blah, blah, blah. Same thing. You got to tell me what your variable stands for. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Let's move on. Dominic needs supplies for the new school year. He buys pens, P, and N notebooks. So P stands for pens and N stands for notebooks. All right? So we know that right up front. We're going to write an algebraic expression for the total cost of his supplies. Total means that we're going to have to do what with our pens and our notebooks? Put it all together. If we're putting it all together, we're going to have to add. Well, we're going to have to go over here and look at our chart over here. How much does each pen cost? $2. How do I figure out the cost of my pens? If every pen costs $2, how do I figure out the cost of my pens? Yes, 2 multiplied by how many pens I'm going to buy. Good. How do I figure out the cost of my notebooks?
I multiply 3 times how many notebooks you get.
Yes. What will I do with those 2 costs? Add them together. There's my algebraic expression. Now, once I know how many pens I'm going to buy and how many notebooks I'm going to buy, I can figure out what my costs are, right? Because maybe he buys 5 pens and 3 notebooks. Maybe he buys 10 pens and 2 notebooks. Okay? But everybody is going to pay $2 for every pen and $3 for every notebook. Does that make sense? Okay? But the P and the N values can change. Depends on how many you buy when you get to that register. Does that make sense? Okay? Maria expects to spend $10 on gifts for each of her C cousins. How much money will Maria spend altogether for gifts? How many cousins does Maria have? C. We don't know how many cousins she has, right? She has C cousins. How much money is she going to spend on each of them? 10. Times C. Does that make sense? For every cousin, I spend $10. I multiply 10 times how many cousins I have, right? Where C is the number of cousins. Zachary, you need to be taking notes. Oh my. Part B. How much money will Maria spend altogether if she forgets to buy gifts for F cousins? Ooh. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Put some thought into that. What do you think the expression should be? Write down what you think the expression should be. Turn to the person across from you, mask up, and discuss how you came up with your expression. You guys are talking here. You guys are going that way. You guys are going this way. You guys are going this way. You have to be a threesome here. Go. Talk, 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 talk. Yes. What? Okay, what did you come up with?
F minus B.
F minus C.
Yeah.
That's how much she's spent. Oh, that's how much she's spending, you think?
Yeah.
Where F represents the
Many cousins?
forgotten cousins. And C is the total cousins.
Yeah.
So the forgotten cousins minus the total cousins gives us how much she's going to spend on the cousins. Would everybody agree with that? I forgot 2 cousins. I subtract off all my cousins, and I know how much I'm going to spend. Hello, does that make sense?
No.
No?
Yes.
All right, so we're not going to go with that one. I heard a no on that one. Okay, any other ideas?
10 minus F?
10 I take my $10 and I subtract off the cousins I forgot. I have $10 and I subtract off 2 cousins that I forgot. And I'm spending $8 on all my cousins. Yes? Does that make sense? I have $10 in my pocket. I forgot about 2 cousins, so I only have $8 to spend on all my cousins. Does that make sense? No, nope. 10 times C. And what did you do about my forgotten cousins? That was for all my cousins. Oh. Can that be the same if I forgot some? C times 0. So I'm not spending anybody? Oh, I remembered some of my cousins. What? Minus what? I put those things. What things are you talking about, honey? My shoes or what? Huh? You want these in parentheses? So I got my total cost I'm going to spend on all my cousins minus the 2 cousins I forgot. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Well, we're getting closer, but we're not quite there. Because that would, if I had 10 cousins, $100 minus 2 cousins? I can't take money and subtract out cousins, can I? But we're getting closer. No. Nope. Yes? Okay. That could be part of it. That would, yeah, okay, one.
Plus 10.
Not plus 10, but times 10. This will tell us how many cousins we have to buy for, won't it? Won't it? Yes?
Yeah.
And I spend $10 on all of them. Now I want to look at this one though. I could have also put minus 10 times F here. This would have been how much I spent on everybody minus how much I would have spent on each of those that I don't buy for. Does that make sense? And when I look at these two, it's a distributed property all over the place. Yes, no? So I can figure out how many people I'm going to buy for, multiply by 10, or figure out how many I'm going to buy for if everybody was there, minus how much I'm not going to buy for. Does that make sense? It's the distributed property. Either one would have worked. Does that make sense? Okay. Questions on today's lesson? All right. For tomorrow, you are writing expressions. Or actually, this is due on Wednesday. Let's take a look at page 5 and 6. Let's do all on page 5 and 6. All you're doing is writing expressions. You're not evaluating, you're writing expressions. 5 and 6. Okay, it's due on Wednesday. Okay, due on Wednesday, 5 and 6. What? I don't know what you're saying. On page 5 and 6, you're doing all. Okay? You're writing expressions. That means you're circling keywords, underline that, all that business. Don't forget to define your variables. What do those variables stand for? Just like we do in our math writings. Okay? All right? Questions? Okay, get started.